So if you're a renter and you want to own real estate, but you don't quite yet have the down payment or the credit to qualify for a loan, then you may have considered looking into other creative options or ways to buy real estate. That's where lease options come in, also known as rent to own options. I can't tell you how many times I get asked by my own clients about rent to own options. So I wanted to make this video to clarify exactly what they are, how they work, and if they're right for you. Hey, if we're just meeting for the first time, my name is Vargas from the Vargas team, and I share with you all things real estate related, so consider subscribing if that is something that you're interested in. Okay, so lease options, what are they exactly? Well, to begin with, lease options serve as a real estate strategy to control real estate. That's important for you guys to know because the entire foundation and framework of lease options are built around this concept. And in case you're curious, there are other strategies and methods that grant you control of an asset, but in this video, we'll be sticking to discussing lease options or rent to own as they're sometimes referred to because these tend to be the most common. In a nutshell, lease options are exactly what they sound like. You have a lease in place and you have the option to buy that property during a specified time window. When done correctly, lease options consist of two main documents. The first is the standard lease agreement that outlines, of course, the lease terms. And the second document is separate to the lease agreement and is what is called an option agreement. This option agreement grants you as the tenant buyer the ability or the option to buy the home at agreed upon fixed price at a later date. The terms for a lease option can vary, of course, but they usually consist of an option fee and rent credits. An option fee is where the tenant buyer pays a non-refundable fee to the seller, usually between $5,000 to $15,000, for the ability to enter into an option agreement, which, as you guys already know, grants you as the tenant buyer the ability to buy the home at a later date, usually around 24 to 36 months later. So essentially, this locks in the property for about 2 to 3 years where no one else can buy the property, giving you the time that you need to save for the down payment and get your financing in order with your bank or your lender. Rent credits, on the other hand, are when a portion of the rent that you pay are credited towards the final sales price. It's also important to note that with lease options or rent to own options, however you want to pronounce them at this point, obligate the seller to sell the property, but they do not obligate the buyer to buy the property. So they're pretty great in the sense that you as a tenant buyer have little to no risk. Now, if you're asking yourself, how in the world does this benefit the seller? Well, there are a few takeaways, of course, that the seller gets by agreeing to a rent to own option. For one, they get the non-refundable option fee paid up front. As I mentioned, this fee is usually between $5,000 to $15,000, so it's a pretty sizable amount of money for a seller just to put in place an option agreement to execute the sale in the future. On top of that, sellers are usually able to obtain more rent. Let's assume that the average property they're renting is $1,500. Without a lease option, that's about as much as they can get. However, with a lease option, they may be able to push those $1,500, say, to $1,700 and provide the tenant buyer a rent credit of around $300 per month to go towards the sales price. Another pro for sellers is the maintenance in many cases is transferred to the tenant buyer. Remember, you're the future property owner, so that comes with a vested interest. Sellers understand this, so many times they're able to obtain a better qualified tenant, someone who, of course, has every intention of taking care of the property because, again, this is something that they're going to own in the future, but also a tenant who's willing to pay for those repairs and maintenance that comes with the property. So to summarize, sellers benefit from the upfront option fee, higher rents, and lower expenses, but also the fact that unfortunately, a good portion of these lease options actually never come to close. So in the end, there's a good chance that the seller will actually just reap all these benefits and keep the property. Buyers, on the other hand, get the benefit of locking in and controlling a property for a specified amount of time, which of course, if you're able to negotiate a good price from the beginning, then you as the tenant buyer may have some built-in equity by the time those 2 to 3 years come around. Meaning, appreciation may be your best friend. And by the time you get all of your finances and your funding in order to purchase the property, it may be worth well over what you bought it for. All of this goes without saying that if you're considering going through with a lease option, you want to, of course, consult with your real estate attorney and really understand what it is that you're signing and what you're agreeing to. That way, of course, you're always protected. You also want to understand the current market that you're dealing with, whether you're in a buyer's market or a seller's market, because that will have a huge impact on your ability to execute a lease option. As always, guys, if you found value from this video and you want to help support the channel so that I can bring you more real estate content just like this video, do me a huge favor and give this video a like and share with someone. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can be notified of my next week's video if you haven't done so already. And if you have time, watch one of these videos here or this video here. And everybody, thanks so much for watching and see you all next week.